Well, in this session, I want to talk to you about the problem of consciousness. And so the title for this is Are Human Beings Conscious? So you say, well, not my teenager, but sometimes they may not seem to be conscious. But in the past, our grandparents, great grandparents, way back, human beings in all countries and all cultures would have never stopped twice to think about this question that we are now considering seriously in our times. Are human beings conscious? And it may surprise you to know that this is really a topic of great discussion among the world's neuroscientists and philosophers. Are human beings really conscious? My intro to this is one of my favorite science fiction books that I've read in a long time by the author Andrew Weir, and it's called The Hail Mary Project, and it begins with a voice and some being, we don't know who, is trying to figure out what the voice is saying, and the voice is saying, "What is 2 plus 2?" And the response is, incorrect. What is 2 plus 2? And he said, I don't know. Incorrect. What is 2 plus 2? And this goes on for hours as this cruel voice continues to demand an answer to 2 plus 2. Finally, the one being addressed says, 4. The answer is 4. And the voice says, correct. What is your name? And again, it starts off, incorrect. And this goes on for many more hours. And what's happening is that there is a person. His name is Roland Grace. And he is on a spaceship and he is awakening after a very long sleep, and he doesn't know where he is or who he is. So he's barely conscious. And the voice is that of the ship's computer, mainframe computer that's running the thing. And so finally, Dr. Grace is conscious enough that the computer surrenders the control of the ship. But it's a good way to think about consciousness because we cannot remember a time of not being conscious. But if you go back, and sometimes I have done this with clients, you go back to that point to where when's the first time you can remember being aware of being aware. And there was a time consciousness for you dawned. It wasn't just one day the switch came on, like, as soon as you were born, because you see pictures of yourself, most of us do, before we were conscious, and we do not have memories of these what these pictures depict. And so consciousness emerges. And as we've learned more and more about consciousness and how it develops and emerges, the question has become serious on, are we conscious? And it's a very important question because now as we interact with artificial intelligence and robots and so forth, we begin to wonder, are they conscious? And in a whole different study arena, we start thinking about animals. To what extent are animals conscious? Is everything that's living conscious? So we're pretty sure that a chimpanzee is conscious because they look in the mirror, they see us do things, they repeat it, they play little jokes on us, and people that work with chimps are quite sure that they're conscious. Now we're learning octopus seem to show the same thing. The African gray parrot seems to show this kind of very high level conscious awareness, maybe horses. I haven't been with some of these animals, so I can't say that, but I do know that there are some dogs that are particularly very intelligent. But does that mean consciousness in the way we're conscious? Is a tree conscious? Well, I mean, we don't know where the line is between consciousness and unconsciousness. Many of us have had the experience of being under anesthesia, and we've had Dr. Grace's kind of experience of slowly becoming aware of the world and who are you and who am I and and then bang, the lights come on for us. But when scientists that are not Christians or Jews, or they don't have a religious frame of reference, just believe that being products of evolution, that consciousness is not a real thing for us. It's what they call the zombie problem. And it's not the zombie like in the movies where it's like, oh, and life, land of the living dead or whatever. The zombie problem in the philosophy sense is someone appearing to make the right answers and process your questions, and they're talking to you, but they don't really have an inner life. So when we deal with artificial intelligence program, that's what we're dealing with. Great algorithms, guesses as to what our concerns are by pulling off, reading great portions of the internet and so forth, and then bringing back questions that answers that may astound us and may appear to be conversational, but we're really projecting onto them consciousness. They are not really conscious, but they appear to be conscious. So that makes us wonder if, well, maybe my neighbor that I'm talking to that I thought was conscious may not really be conscious. And ultimately, of course, that has to come back to me and ask myself, am I a conscious being? Well, I mean, the Christian and Jewish answer to this is definitive. Yes, I am a person made in the image and the likeness of God, to whom God has granted independent existence, a dignity of independent existence. I can even defy God if I so choose, because God has given me that right to be a free moral agent. And so I can choose relationship with God or with others, or I can choose not to have relationship. And how I define the world, so many things are up to me to decide, because I'm a consciously aware individual. But it may surprise you to know that more and more neuroscientists and philosophers are becoming pretty hardened in the idea that we are not really conscious, that like the computer, we are a kind of layers of algorithms. There's another non-Christian but very vocal group against that idea, even within philosophy and neuroscience. David Chalmers calls this the hard problem of consciousness, and asks, how are we going to solve the fact that mind emerges out of matter? And at what level does this occur? And there's all kinds of answers for it in the secular arena. For the Christian, the answer is pretty simple, that we are made in the image and likeness of God, and therefore we are a moral agent, and we have the ability to think and to reason and to develop and become even more individuated and personified within community. But this is not an opinion that's shared by many of our neighbors, particularly many of our younger neighbors. And so the reality becomes very slippery around what is a human being, how does a human being differ from an ape, how does a human being differ from a frog, how does a human being differ from a tree, and is this not just kind of a graduated kind of spectrum of intelligences, and indeed are we now not facing silicon-based intelligence that's sentient and conscious? These are the questions of our age, and for someone of my age, that I'm turning 70 in a couple of weeks, someone my age tends to see these questions as being nonsensical. But when millions of people think otherwise, we can't really say that they're nonsensical. We can just say they're not opinions with which we agree. And so then we're called, in conversation and respectful engagement with others, we're called to describe what we think is real. And when it comes to personhood, that is a very, very vital subject indeed.